Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lunatics. I'm Tyler, your host, along with John, my co-host. We had a not so exciting weekend in the world of St. Louis sports, and that's kind of carried into this week with some of the news we've got, although it could be worse. We could be the Padres and have to take out a loan just to pay our payroll. John, what do you have for me this week?
Well, not $50 million to help cover payroll for the Padres. And to be fair, if it had worked, they probably wouldn't have needed to do that. But I heard they took it out in September, which, you don't get any of that playoff money until after the season. So there's a good chance that that they would have still needed to take out that loan. But
Well,
that's
if you spend a ton of
crazy.
money on a team and you don't win a lot of games and you underperform, you're probably not selling a lot of tickets, especially when it's probably a lot cheaper to just go to the beach in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, they were selling tickets every game I watched of San Diego. Like it was a packed house. They were selling at least early on, but I don't know. But on the reverse side of that, though, you have the Rangers who went out and spent less, but more than most everyone else, and just won the World Series yesterday. So basically, Mo and Bill DeWitt, if you are listening to us, spend the fucking money. Just not as much as the Mets or the Padres. Thanks.
Yeah. Spend, but spend wisely, right? Selective spending. But don't be afraid to open the pocketbook. And, huge shout out to our boy, Jordan Montgomery, who got his World Series ring. So I'm super excited about that. That guy was a workhorse for us for like almost exactly a season because we got him right at the deadline and then dealt him at the deadline. But still somebody that I wish can come back. And spoiler alert, we're recording our Cardinals roster edition this weekend before the City game, because after the City game on Sunday, we're going to have there's a lot of other things we're going to have on our minds. So going to try to get that out of the way, hopefully before free agency gets crazy, and see if how many of our predictions hold true. Also may or may not be a heated episode because John and I have some very strong differing opinions on what's going to happen with this team in the offseason.
Oh, absolutely. Before we get into the stuff we actually intend to talk about tonight, though, I saw this thing right before we hopped on that I wanted to share with you. Does the name Matt Bush mean anything to you?
The Rangers
yeah.
guy that they drafted went to Japan. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Well, I don't know about the Japan part of it, but he got picked up by them in September, or called up maybe. I don't know. The thing I saw says picked up. Never pitched for the major league team during the regular season, makes the playoff roster, stays on the playoff roster each round, but never pitches, gets a World Series ring. Like, hell yeah. Although it would also suck to never get to play.
But so he's been in the league a long time.
Right.
Or around.
He's been around.
But I thought he went to, like, I thought he got drafted by the Rangers, flamed out of the major league somewhere, ended up in, where the heck was it? Somewhere in like Japan or something for a while. Yeah. And then eventually like trickled his way back in. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. It looks like he last pitched in 2018. Then was gone and didn't come back until 2021, and then bounced around a little bit. So exciting for him. But yeah, he was one of those. He was looked like he was going to be one of the next big things when they drafted him. But things don't always work out as they seem.
That's how it goes. But anyway, St. Louis sports. Where do you want to start? What do you want to complain about first?
I'm going to start with the Blues because I've got a guy here at my work right now from Colorado who's an Avs fan, and I had to hear about it today at work, which is less than exciting because, first of all, I hate the Avs. Second of all, I hate when the Blues are losing. And then top it off, he's put it at my face and reminding me of it. Yeah. You know what, Creighton? I'm coming after you next week when you come back on site.
That's right. I'm coming for you. Probably harder than the Blues actually came after the Avs. That was pathetic.
We got absolutely dismantled last week. Then we bounced back and shut get a shutout win of our own and look like, you know what? Maybe that beating that we took was a wake up call. We're going to start playing some real hockey.
Right.
And then back-to-back clunkers. We look absolutely atrocious. We have the game we won, we were getting on the forecheck. We were putting the puck in the offensive zone. We were holding it in the offensive zone. We were doing all the things you would like to see us do. And then now, the next game, it's like, oh, okay, cool. We can score goals. Let's just go back to what we were doing before. No. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the leaders on the team can't, and I say the leaders, but like, there's not enough physical guys that can do the things that need to be done on a hockey rink, in my opinion.
Right.
And especially not in Berube's style and how they want to play.
Right. Like, we have to be a physical team to be successful, and we're not being physical. In addition to that, we're not being aggressive with taking our shots, especially on the power play. Like I don't know if you had seen this yet, but we have scored one goal before tonight, or before last night, at least one goal in 25 power plays on the season. One. And I'll go ahead and tell you that makes us last in the league in power play goals. You don't even have to look that up. I'll just tell you if you didn't know.
I wasn't going to look it up because I just, honestly, for the rest of the league's sake, I was hoping we were last.
Right. 1 for 25.
And the sad part is that our penalty kill has been solid this year.
Yeah.
That's if you want one bright spot for our team this year, it's been the penalty kill.
Yeah, that the only bright spot. The problem with it, and I think
Jordan Bennington's another one, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but the problem is that we're playing needing, and you and I called this out early on when we first started, like, bringing in blue stuff. We're playing like we need Benner to make 35 fucking saves a game. Except,
and not easy saves.
Not easy saves either. Like, you can't consistently win that way. And we're leaving space open in front of net, right? We're not really being organized defensively. And it's costing us. I mean,
so we have not last night's game, but the game before, we gave up 18 shots on goal in the first period. 18
in the first period. Yeah.
Please tell me how you don't have some sort of PTSD coming back onto the ice in the second period, thinking back to last season and the beating Benner took.
Hey, let me ask you this. Okay. We have played 8 games. Okay. We've won 3 of them. Good for us. Guess how many of them we have allowed at least 2 goals in?
Oh, at least 2 goals. All but 3 of the games, so 5 games.
All but 1 of the games, actually. We've allowed at least 2 goals.
2 goals?
Yeah. Yep. The only game
so we had the
less...
shutout, and then we had the 2 games we went to overtime, which would have been...
It changes because of the... It gives you the goal at the end, right? I forgot about that. I'm just looking at the scores. You're right. But either way,
I was like, I've watched every game this season. Hold on a minute.
Hold up. That's a good point. But of the games that did not go, right? So 4-1 loss to the Avalanche, 5-0 loss to the Canucks, 4-2 loss to the Jets, and 4-2 win against the Penguins, and a 6-2 loss to Arizona. So, like, we're letting in goals. Like we have to get better at scoring. We have to get better at defending. Basically, we have to get better at playing hockey.
I've said this at the beginning of the year, and I'm trying to was going to try to think of how to say it eloquently, but I think Robert Thomas is a good player. I don't know. I think long term he might be an $8 million a year player. I don't see it with Kyrou. There's a lot of people out there that love Jordan Kyrou. He's never going to be a two-way player, and he's proving that right now.
Right.
If there's not a trade, if there's not something to get him gone by the end of the season, if we continue down this trajectory, I'd be shocked. Because some playoff fringe team is going to want his offensive firepower to put on their third line.
Right. And that's where he should, I mean, like, that's role
where he earned
he
his
should
contract.
be playing in a good team. Well, yeah. But, like, if you have a well-designed team, that's where you put a player with Kyrou's explicit skill set. You put him on the third line where he doesn't have to be a two-way player, and you do that explicitly to take advantage of that. And we're having to use him on the first line. And the problem is that when you're getting the majority of the minutes, you have to be playing defense, and he can't, or at least he doesn't.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you
I don't
think he
even know
can?
that it's if he can't. I think it's because I think it's that he won't. And this is something that I've in my career managing, right? That there's always the three types of employees. So there's 3 types of players, right? It's the same thing. They either can't do it, they just can't. They can do it, or they can do it and they won't do it.
Right.
There's only one of those people that I want on my team or want employed by
Absolutely.
me. And it's the one who
Absolutely.
can do it. If you can't do it, okay, cool. We need to find either a different spot or move you on. If you can do it but won't, which is where I think Kyrou falls into, I think he can do it. I think he just won't. And I don't want that person on my team.
Yeah. And so, what scares me about both the Blues and actually the Cardinals too is that the holes are so big that I'm worried that the amount of time it will take to fill them all with good upgrades, like that we're going to miss the window on some of the players we've got now. We're going to end up losing them. And then by the time we fix the holes, we're not actually net improving because we're losing other players that, like, you know what I mean?
No, I get that. I think for me, the Blues are not, they're not that far away, right? And we've shown that in the wins against Pittsburgh, right? When and then in things like we have a team that can get up and play. It's how do we get around that? And one of the things that I keep thinking about is how we have our lines designed and who's playing where. And I don't know what the answer is, but if Robert Thomas is your top line center, if Bucci's playing up there with Thomas, you need a player that can really play defense and help with the two-way side of things. Likewise, whatever line if you're going to keep Kyrou, and you have to at this point until something better comes along, all you have to do is you're going to have to take Kyrou and you're going to have to put him with 2 guys who are very defensive minded and are willing to more or less just give him the puck on fast breaks because that's where he makes his money. One thing that I did like coming out recently, there's two big things. One, I think I took a screenshot and sent to you, and it was Kyrou and Schenn getting into it in practice.
Yep.
And my hope was that Schenn was going to knock some sense into Kyrou, but it doesn't look like it lasted. The second was Jakub Vrana.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you saw that
piece.
Yeah.
So he got healthy
scratch. Yeah.
And afterwards he's like, point taken. I'll take care of. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. Essentially,
and that's what you want on your team. You want that mindset. You want the guys that are not going to take it personally. They're going to understand, like, hey, I have to be better, especially when you have the expectations, that Vrana has, right? Which are really no less than what Thomas and Kyrou have. Honestly, I know there's not the salary thing, but like in terms of performance, like you kind of have a similar expectation of them.
Especially on the line he's playing on.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's the mindset I want on every player on every team, period. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that too, that similar mindset when we get to City after this. But I feel like that's been missing a lot with the Blues players this year.
Yes, no, I agree 100%. You need the people like Jordan Okay, we talked about the Rangers, right? Jordan Montgomery is a good regular season pitcher. He's not, he's not a Cy Young contender, right? But then he gets the ball in the playoffs and absolutely shut everyone down.
Yep.
And that's what you want, right? I think of Chris Carpenter. Now, Chris Carpenter did win a Cy Young, right?
Yeah.
But come playoff time, Chris Carpenter was a different animal, and you wanted him on the mound. My favorite playoff game in my lifetime, and I think I've talked about it once or twice already on this show, so if you've already heard this, forgive me, but it's Game 5, 2011 NLDS, Roy Halladay, Chris Carpenter.
Yeah.
And you have 2 absolute dogs who want the ball, want to be the ones, and they're like, I'm going to step up even if nobody else will, and absolutely. I will take care of this. And those 2 guys were amazing. Now, again, they were also both Cy Young winners and good in the regular season as
Right.
well. But when the postseason came, both of them hit another level.
Right. Right. They were best friends too. I don't know if you know that, but they were best friends. So
Yes.
like
Yeah.
made it an even cooler story. And as soon as you said, like, you were like game 5, and I'm like, oh, he's going NLDS 2011. Like, I knew immediately as soon as you said game 5, I was like, I know which game this is. I know exactly which game it is. I was listening to 101 ESPN the other day, and I'm sure you probably heard this same thing because I think we have like the same drives to work this week, maybe. But
I'm
they
going to
were
be
talking
honest. I've been
about
listening to Always Sunny podcast to and from work this week because I need
now.
the obnoxiousness in my life to laugh with everything going on.
Work is just very busy for Tyler right now. For those of you listening, but so they were asking each other, are the Blues a playoff team? And the response that everyone gave was, well, you don't know. We don't know because they're so inconsistent. No, if you're this inconsistent, that means you're not a playoff team. Playoff teams are consistent. You may not win every game, but you're consistently winning more than you're not. And
it's not even the consistently winning, it's the
consistently
product you put
playing.
on the ice.
Yeah.
Is consistent, and you're
Right.
consistently doing what you need to do to put yourself in a position to win, even if you're losing.
Absolutely.
And that's what we had in even in 2019 when we got off to that terrible start.
Yeah.
The reason they made trades to bring in good players
Right.
was because they saw we're right there, right? We're doing all the things, we're just not getting results. I can't say that about this team. If you ask me right now if this team was a playoff team, I'd tell you, hell no, they're not. Not as they're currently playing, not as they're currently constructed. And this is coming from somebody who going into the season, right? I was high on the Blues. And I felt like they were going to be a fringe, like bottom last wild card type team if they played to their potential. If some of these guys in the big player that I really needed to step up was Kyrou to play a full 200-foot game along with Thomas. Yeah. Thomas has played better. He still hasn't shown me the full 200-foot game though that I want to see out of him either, but he's shown me that he's more willing to than Kyrou.
Right. Well, and the other thing to mention just about the team in general is that I think Thomas is the only player on the team right now that's like on pace to score more than 10 goals this season. Like, and granted, we're only 8 games in, but that basically means that everyone has scored only 1 goal and Thomas has 2.
A few years ago, we had 9 20-goal scorers.
Right.
This year, we might have 1 10-goal scorer.
Right. Like, it's unacceptable.
And the worst part is I feel like this is going to end up coming down and they're going to end up firing Chief.
Right.
And blaming Berube, but like, and Armstrong's not one to usually give scapegoats, but like, I don't feel like this is a Chief thing. I know that Chief can I know he can get the job done and know that his style works, but you got to get him the players to fit his style. Right. And I feel like they may move on from him to try to find somebody who can coach a run and gun style team better. But I don't think run and gun style teams are going to win the cup.
Yeah.
No, you got to be able to play that deep possession forecheck game if you actually want to make a run. So I'd rather keep Chief and then work on getting players that can play playoff style hockey.
Right. Because if you're not playing for the playoffs, then what the fuck are you doing here? Like this is America.
Let me call up the Royals and I'll find out.
Milking the money like the Athletics. The last thing I have to ask about the Blues before I want to move on to City is, if you're Chief, okay, you're at an inflection point for your career right now, for your job, and for this season. What's your message to the guys to try to turn this around? What are you saying to them?
So part of me wants to say, like, if I were the coach, that I would be the guy who would be, it's hard, right? It's the same thing when you're leading a team, because you want to give equal, kick them in the ass, but also like let them know that we're in this together.
Right.
And it's a hard message to deliver. I think that needs to be first, right? It's, hey, this is on all of us. We are all sucking.
Right.
But if you guys, certain people don't start giving me what I'm looking for, you're not going to have a place on this team. And I think that's what it comes down to. And I don't know. Again, it's going to have to be a meeting with Berube and Armstrong first so that they're on the same page. Army's got to give the go ahead of, hey, yeah, if you're going to start benching these players, you got to talk to me, because if you don't want them, I need their value at least high enough that I can get rid of them.
Right. Well, and that
Army's a smart guy,
right? Perunovic, has he played yet?
He's played more recently. So starting when the shutout win is when he started getting more playing time. So they started they went to a 7-11. So they added an additional defenseman, and that additional defenseman was Perunovic.
Okay. Because that was my other concern for him for the first few games, is that he's not getting out on the ice. Well, we can't send him down because he won't clear waivers at this point, right? But then we're also not, like, if we're not playing him, we need to move him on and get value back from him. But there's going to be injuries. It's a long season. It's a physical game. But
is hockey physical?
Last time I heard it was, but yeah, I don't know.
Never
There's a
noticed.
lot of wimps playing it though. So,
dude, if we're being honest, if there is a player from any like major team sport to not get in a fight with, it is always going to be the hockey player.
Oh, absolutely. No way in hell. Yeah. No.
I mean, like, there. I'm just imagining, I mean, and some of these guys are not like big dudes, but I would want absolutely no part of them ever in a fight.
No. I mean, they're not big dudes, but they can throw down, like, you don't need to be big to be scrappy, but.
Oh yeah.
I don't have anything else to say about the Blues. Do you want to move on to City, or you have any last thoughts?
No, I think we're good. Let's move on to City, because the Blues make me depressed, although this next topic isn't going to make me a whole lot more happy. But at least there's some hope coming for City. So you and I were both at the game.
It was cold, Sunday. Wet, and miserable.
Yeah, we were there. You were under the overhang. I wasn't under the overhang.
That was nice. I was very thankful for that, because like the way the rain was like coming down, and like my seat was completely dry. Like I didn't even have to wipe off my seat. The overhang did it.
Wait, perfectly. You were sitting down?
I was before the game. I got there when the gates opened at 7:30.
No,
actually before the gates opened, because I went and bought those scarves at 7:15, and then I was like, oh well, that was quicker than I thought. I guess I can go stand in line.
The concourse was packed. I saw somebody post, this is funny. So it was freezing cold. It was raining. So nobody was going down to their seats because they didn't want to stand in the rain, right? There was somebody who's normally in supporter section who was like, dude, I was at the south end today, and like the concourse was packed. Is it always that bad? And it's like, dude, it was that bad because nobody wanted to go to their seats because it was freezing cold and raining.
Like, were you paying attention to what was happening at that time?
Yeah. No, the wife and I went straight down to our seats after we got in. I came up to you to find stuff and then went down to our seats. But a friend of mine came in clutch and dropped off a couple of 2-for-5 ponchos to keep us dry. So we just threw those over our stuff and went down. That guy dropped those off.
I didn't even have to use mine. It was awesome.
Oh, that's great. No, we threw ours on and right before we walked down to our seats. So I mean, like, it was great. We did and honestly, it wasn't that cold in the stadium. Like, I mean, everyone was complaining. I mean, we did layer up some, but like,
well, once everyone like came out to their seats and the game started, it got a lot better, just because it's tight, right? That is the thing about City Park, is it's a tight fit. But on a cold night like that, I was like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good right now.
The 4 seats, there was very few open seats, but believe it or not, the 4 seats next to me and then like 3 of the 4 seats in front of them were all open. So like every time the wind blew, it was just blasting my left side.
Yeah, that sucks. I didn't have that problem. The whole second level showed up.
Yeah. So this is where So I got down to the game a little later after we finally, because we were waiting for babysitters to get here.
Sure.
Shout out to Shravan for coming in and hanging out with the kiddos. Came in clutch, so we didn't have to sell our tickets.
That was a deep dive down the babysitter list.
Hey, you know what? Crazier things have happened. Shravan has hung out and helped babysit actually back in when him and I both lived in Rolla, so it's been a little bit.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, but it's
anyway,
not his first rodeo. Either way,
he gets there. You go to the game.
So we get down there, we parked, and as we parked, they released the lineup. And I looked at the lineup, and I looked at Lindsay, and I said, I have no idea what the hell they're doing.
Right.
I told her who was starting, and she goes, so Stroud's on there, but Gio and Big Sam aren't starting, neither one. And I was like, yeah, no, I had the same thought, Lindsay.
Right. And I mean, the thing is that both of those guys, so like, okay, if you're worried that they can't play a full 90, right? And you think that there's a chance this game goes to PKs, I can see the case of wanting to bring both of them on at the half mark, or like early in the second half. But both of those guys should be 90 minutes fit, so it doesn't even matter. It's a moot point. And I know that in at least two of those games, we started with one striker up front. I think because Nico was a lone striker the first game against Kansas City, and Sam was a lone striker at the game in Kansas City to start. But most of our best games have been with a two-striker structure. So like, to go away from that, I hate it. Like it just takes away from what we're best at.
For me, I think what I struggle. So again, the first game against Kansas City, I think we caught Kansas City off guard. Right?
For sure.
They came here, they were flat-footed, they were not ready for our pace and what they were coming to. When we went back to Kansas City, they were ready for us, and the lone striker wasn't enough to push the pace up top, which is why we made the subs we made to change back to our normal formation. And then when we came to Kansas City, we did beat them. But guess what? We started in the formation we're comfortable with. And I think what I struggled with is we haven't really ran this 4-2-3-1 enough for our players, especially not in this high pressure of an environment and these conditions, for them to be absolutely like ready and to handle it. They just weren't ready. They didn't look like they understood all of their responsibilities. There was things getting missed. Nerwinski got absolutely hung out to dry by the fact that midfielders weren't sure who was supposed to be coming back and covering who, which then made Nerwinski the fall guy. And he didn't actually, if you watch him, didn't have a terrible game.
He did not. No, that's what I was going to tell you. Like, because like the next morning, you and I talked a lot about this, about like, man, fullbacks had a rough night last night. And then there were definitely times where Nerwinski got a little hung out, but Kansas City didn't capitalize. But when you go back and you look at the goals, and particularly the first goal and the third goal, and you realize, oh, that's not the reason why Nerwinski is not covering that guy coming into his zone, is because he's got to cover someone at the top of the box because everyone else is stepping to Alan Polito in the midfield, you know? And that happened twice. And don't get me wrong, right? Okay, I know. So this is a funny for you. I listened to the Athletic Total Soccer Show, which is a podcast, and on Tuesdays they do an MLS only show, and David Goss, who we've already said previous episodes we love you, David Goss. If you're listening ever, come join us. He was asked, so did Kansas City figure out the secret to beating St. Louis? And his response was, what do you mean scoring goals from 30 yards out into the top corner of the net? Because I think that's the secret to beating everyone. And I was like, touche, David Goss, you are not wrong with that. But that being said, Kansas City did play the better game. Their goals were just 3 of the 4 goals were just very fortunate as well.
They were well-placed goals, but we gave them so much time to prepare for that strike. That's why, right? Like if you give Leuven that much time, he's going to probably pick out a
Right.
corner. If you give Klaus that much time, he almost did pick out a corner, and he had way less time than they did a couple times. And I think there's a lot of pieces of that. You put a stat in here, which I think is one of my favorites. So for those of you who don't follow soccer closely, expected goals is the amount of goals you would be expected to get based on the chances that you had and where they were at in the field from when they took where they took the shots based on where other players are, etc. It's a crazy formula, but it's the easiest way to kind of judge, okay, are they creating real chances, or is this their little bit of luck? Is this sustainable?
Right.
Their first 3 goals came on a combined 0.3 expected goals.
So that basically means, to like simplify that on all the shots they took, not just the ones that went into the goal there, but there were a few others in there too, I think. All of those goals combined, all those shots combined, 30% of the time, one of them, of the cumulative, one of them might have gone in.
Yeah.
And instead they got 3 of them. So like that just it can imply to you that they're not, they're not getting into strong positions to score. They are still scoring. You still have to, hit the ball right, still got to put it in the right spot in the net, etc. But they're not in positions that normally equal goals.
And I want to highlight 2 players who I feel like really did a good job of limiting this,
Sure.
the expected goals. Parker and
Absolutely.
Nielsen.
Absolutely.
Those 2 guys had great, and I still see people hating on Parker nonstop, and I don't get it. The guy's an absolute workhorse.
Be defender of the
Lindsay
year.
absolutely loves him. How many goals has he saved by understanding positioning, getting behind Berkey to cover his blind spot? He had another one on Sunday.
Yeah. Late in the game, like in the second half. Yeah, I remember that. Well, there's a new theory out there now. Have you heard this? The new theory out there is that, okay, so since Nielsen came back, he has started 8 games, and we have won one of those games, and we have allowed a lot of goals, 19 goals in those games. And so the theory is, well, that's the only thing that changed, right? And I'm like, okay, but if you watch, like, he's playing better than Yaro and Hiebert and Bartlett and Bell did, right? So you can say, like, okay, maybe it is a chemistry thing where, like, but we also brought in Marcanic at that time. So, like, okay, you're talking about Nielsen, who was a Swedish national team player, and you're not talking about, some of the other changes that we've made. We've switched fullbacks twice in there. Like,
the thing, and I already said it once, I feel like it's our midfield. I feel like our midfield is not tracking back as well. And I think it has a lot to do with and again, I love Bradley Carnell, and we question him on here. I love the guy, and I have no business questioning him. He's the one who coached them all the way to the playoffs. And so, there's some coaches like Ollie when I question, and I feel like I know as much as he does. So I don't feel like I should question him, or I feel like I can question him. Like, I feel bad at times questioning Carnell, because at times he pulls all of the right strings and does all of the things.
Right.
But he does so much tinkering with the lineup.
Right.
That I feel like that, especially in the midfield, because we have so many players that can play in so many different places.
Right.
Guys don't really get comfortable with any set of skills or roles. You think about Hiebert, right? Going from center defender to left back. Well, yeah, he struggles at left back. And actually, for somebody who's hated on Hiebert a lot at times at left back, he didn't look terrible. No. I think him as a sub at left back makes a lot more sense, because they're not as fast. So it allows, because he doesn't have fast. The speed of a typical left back. So for him to come on when they're already run down, I think gives him a better chance to shine with his physical abilities and his ability to get in their way. So I thought he looked good there, but just highlighting, and we came out and we started Stroud out on the left, and
which is not where he's at his best.
No. And he had a couple of attempted crosses with his left foot that were just atrocious.
Right.
And it's like, what are we doing here? Right. Like, why did, in my mind, Stroud should have been on the bench. We should have gone to a 4-4-2, and we should have had Big Sam up front, maybe Gio. but I think Big Sam's speed plays better because
Right.
I don't.
Well,
Kansas City's
their
defense,
center
their back
backs are
four is not
slow.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That like Sam needs to be playing every minute of this game against teams like this. Like his speed is it's the same. It's part of the same reason why AZ is so good is because he's so quick. And don't get me wrong, AZ is very good on the dribble as well, but so is Sam. Sam has done some really great things one-on-one, but
he looked off Sunday night.
yeah, well, so did Leuven. Did you notice
Yeah,
that? Like Leuven looked fine, okay offensively, like not great, but no one did.
he was
But
not tracking back as hard
no,
as like he normally does. He looked like something was off with him, which makes me
right,
concerned.
right,
You could tell he was frustrated that
right.
unwarranted. As soon as he booted the ball, I looked at Lindsay. It's like he's getting a yellow, and she's like,
Yeah,
"What?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
yeah,
just
yeah. I had the same thought. Well, and I think I saw that as far as like the counting stats, like the counting defensive stats, like how many tackles, how many interceptions, etc. I think it was like towards the bottom or like dead last on the team of everyone who played on like everyone, including like people who came on in the second half. And that he had a really bad missed tackle that led directly to the third goal too. And it's like, Leuven, I don't want to say he's beyond reproach because no one is really, but he has earned the benefit of the doubt. And it just sucks that like the game you're gonna have as probably your worst game of the season is this one.
yeah." And this is where some good things, right? It's a best of three. It's
Best
and
of
it's
three.
not. It is.
Yes. I know where you're going.
It is not an aggregate. So in most soccer worlds in Europe, if there's a series, it's usually a 2-game series leg, and it is aggregate score. So whatever your first score rolls into your second game, and if you end up tied, whoever scores the more away goals gets the win. So we don't have to worry about any of that. It just win
Nope.
the next two and we
Just
move
win
on.
the next two. And
And we can.
yeah, we can play with this team. We can beat this
We're
team.
we did, and that's what gets me, right? We played a 4-4-2, and yeah, they had a couple of chances. They're always, every team's always going to have chances. It doesn't matter how bad they
Well,
are.
and especially when you play the high press like we are,
Mhm.
going to leave space for them to run
And
into.
that last game in Kansas, in St. Louis, right, with
Mhm.
in the end of September, the 30th, I think it was the last day of September, and we we knew what we had, we knew what they had, and guess what? We still beat them 4-1. Yeah, did all those 4 goals come in a really quick flurry? Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
But did we have some other amazing chances that could have blown that game open way earlier? Also, yes. And so that was more of the lineup I expected to see. Again, I don't, again, the one player that I had issue with in the starting lineup, and it's, again, you and I have talked about this. Stroud is not my favorite player by any means, but he has his place on the team,
Right.
and he's earned his
Right.
place on the team, and
Yeah,
he runs
absolutely.
his wheels off. He does a great job on the high press. In a game, I think they put him on the line in the field because of the sloppy conditions, hoping that his energy and his press would play. But you got to put him on the right side. You cannot put him on the left
Right.
side
Right.
in that spot. And then by putting him on the field because you didn't want to take your other midfielders off, you're
Right.
sacrificing your most dangerous weapon potentially against the slow Kansas City
Right.
back line
Well,
and
and
Big
not only
Sam.
that, but like if Sam, I think one of the things that
He also pulls
Klaus,
people away from Klaus. He
yes, that's
frees
what I
up
was trying to
space
say.
for him.
Right. He frees up space for Klaus. Klaus, as we've talked about, is so good at reading the game that when Sam pulls them, Klaus instinctively knows where the space is going to be for him. And yeah, so I fully expected subs to come in at halftime.
Yeah,
And when
me
the
too.
same lineup came out, I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like we should be
Yeah.
going for this.
So I was sitting next to a guy, and he follows. They kind of came in and they ended up sliding down closer to us. So I was talking to this guy off and on through the game,
Sure.
and he was like, "Wow, you seem to really know a lot about the team." And I guess he works with the team through some of their like younger kids stuff and
Sure.
things, and so that's how he
Sure.
ended up with the tickets. Um, but I told him, I was like, at halftime, he was like, "Yeah, I don't know, blah blah blah, maybe Big Sam," and he was like, maybe Ostrack, blah blah blah. And I looked at him, I was like, if we want to get back in this game, we need offensive creativity.
Right.
And the two players that I would pull off, is I would have pulled off AZ because he looked like he just didn't have it. I mean,
Right.
and no offense to AZ, but the conditions I think really hurt his quick change of pace and
Sure.
direction
Sure.
style.
Sure.
And I would have pulled off Stroud and I would have brought in Celio and Big Sam. And he's
Yeah.
like, Celio? And he kind of made a face. And I'm like, he is an absolute playmaker on the ball. There's nobody better on our team, or very few as
Right.
good as him on the dribble at just creating opportunities.
Right.
He just doesn't get a lot of minutes. But I was like, in my mind, that was our best chance of getting back in the game. And then we roll out and not a single sub.
Right.
Not one.
Right. And I think they were ready for Sam to come on at the 55th minute, because that's what I distinctly remember, like noticing him standing next to coach at the 55th. But you have to wait for a stoppage. And it didn't end up being until the 60th minute for him to come on. And then I think and he didn't come on alone. Did someone else come on?
We brought in
Hebert?
guys. We brought in Watts. We brought in Hebert.
Right.
I mean, like
Celio eventually, but Celio again came on at the very end of the game
at the 80th or 82nd minute.
Immediately looked like great. Like
he looked like one of the best players on the pitch again.
Again, in all of these games that we're getting blown out, we bring him on at the very end, and suddenly we have life. And it's like, okay, I get that. Like everyone on this team is about the same skill level, and everyone on this team has shown that they can do it. But the one person who's not getting the chance is Celio. He's
not getting the chance. He's not getting the minutes. And everyone is, like I said, you and I've said this, I think it was the last episode, right? When if you took everyone's FIFA ratings, right, they'd be all pretty close together.
Right.
But everyone's going to have very different highs and very different lows.
Right.
And if you need an offensive playmaker to change the game, Celio's your guy right now.
Right.
Nobody is better off the dribble. I mean, he took them to school on the sidelines multiple times, creating chances.
Right. And that's the issue with this, is that you have to also have the ability as a coach to recognize which skills you need to bring into the game. And in a lot of these games where we've been struggling with our normal play style, what we need is someone who's going to just dribble at them and try to run past them with the ball. And we seem to have an inability to make that decision. Now, I am hopeful that next year, once we move AZ and Sam on to bigger opportunities, or different opportunities, maybe in Sam's case, that's going to free up some time for Celio. But, that's not going to do anything this year for us.
Yeah. You were talking about the subs. It was the 59th minute. We brought in Big Sam and Hebert.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And then 4 minutes later, we brought on Nico, but that was because Leuven had just got, or not 14 minutes later, the 73rd.
When Leuven got the yellow.
Yes, for doing his business. But then we didn't make another change until the 80th minute, which is when we brought in Watts and Celio.
Right.
And it's just one of those, like, what are you... I don't understand. I guess this is where, and you and I've talked about this before, early in the season, when we first started this podcast, Carnell tends to stick with the same guys for so long before he changes. And then in September, when we got on that hot streak, it felt like he was getting more aggressive with his subs and was pulling the right strings, right? It was, hey, we need a spark. We're going to sub somebody at the 60th and the 70th minute and give them 20, 30 minutes to make a difference instead of 10. Right. And it showed.
Yeah.
And I feel like that went away. The other, something else from this game, because I don't want to keep harping on it. One, Celio, you're my boy. I will continue to get after you. My favorite, the thing I was going to tell you about the guy I was talking to, so he kind of had no idea. Celio came on, started doing stuff, and he looked at me and he goes, dude, you know your stuff. Like, I had no idea about this guy. I don't know who he was. He's got one of our koozies, so maybe he's going to be a follower now, because he was like, I didn't know you had a podcast. So he was excited. So
shout out guy sitting next to Tyler at the game in the worst conditions.
Hey man, he was out there right in the thick of it with us.
Exactly.
The refereeing was not great. It was questionable at best. But here's my issue. We can't blame that loss. And you and I have said this. We came out flat. We came out in a formation with players that I don't think were our best 11. And then we
Yeah.
didn't play an active attacking game like we needed to, and we didn't track back to play defense in the midfield.
Yeah.
We
You can
didn't
only
deserve to win
play.
that game,
No,
and
no.
it is what it is.
But that being said, I could easily have seen that game, being a 2-1 loss. The scoreline flattered Kansas City, basically, is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting at. I could see that game have ended in a 1-1 draw in regulation, or being a 2-1 loss to us, for us to lose. Like, it was not a 4-1 loss, although it definitely felt like a 4-1 loss at the time. But like, when you look back at it, it really was not. My issue with the refereeing, and I agree with you completely. Like, we can only play the game that's called, right? Like, it's a loser's mentality to blame the refs. Like, that's not what we're about. But what frustrated me the most, and a lot of people were blaming, Uncle, for a lot of the fouls that he was calling that we were committing and whatever. And it's like, okay, we're already losing at that point. That's not
Yeah.
not why we lost the game. But what frustrated me is we had very few true like sequences that looked like it was going to be your like trademark St. Louis City transition attack. And
Mm-hmm.
every single one of them started with a foul Kansas City committing on us, and
And
none of them got
we had
advantage.
advantage. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had advantage, and he never played it for us.
Right. Right. And it's
Yeah.
like, it was just so frustrating because like you could see like, oh my God, we're getting 3 or 4 guys running at the center backs. This is like when we are going to like have our moment, and then he blows it dead. And it's like, fuck, you know?
Yeah. My
But
headphones just died because I apparently forgot to charge them.
oh, well, in that case, I only have like 2 more things left to say anyway.
No,
So
I
I don't
was
know if
like,
you have
me
more.
too.
So
So again, I thought as a whole it looked rough. If you actually watch the one-on-one play of Nerwinski and Marcanic, neither one had a terrible game. They didn't have a great game, but they didn't have a terrible game. Again, I think what really shined through for me was that our midfield didn't look like they grasped what they needed to do and their defensive responsibilities, what they were supposed to be.
right, I think Nurk had a better game than Marcanic, but it's a moot
Marcanic
point,
had
really.
some really terrible giveaways, which is what
Right,
really stood out to me. And
right,
that's not usually like him. It
right.
has not been like him
Yeah,
so far this year.
right. And I think it's just, he's 22, 23, first time in the playoffs, and first time for a lot of this team in the playoffs. But especially when you've not played in big competitions before, truly big competitions. Um, I think the moment may have gotten the better of him, and this is a learning opportunity. He's been very great for us since we've got him. Like, he's probably going to still be the starter next week. Like, and I'm okay with that, and I think everyone should be, because he's, this is the first time since we've got him that he is, I think, really struggled. Um, One thing that I thought was very poignant was Berkey in his post game comments, kind of commented on how everyone was training, and everyone's new to the playoffs. But obviously, what do you think is more intense, the MLS Cup playoffs or the Champions League?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, but Berkey said, and I am paraphrasing here, something along the lines of, well, when you're a younger player, you don't really notice this or know this, but having been around for a while and played, you know, there may be days where you take it off because you're sore or you're tired and you've been playing well, and you're like, you know what, I need a day to kind of recover. And then you take another day, and then it kind of becomes the way you're training right now. And well, the way you train is the way you play. And I think that was reflective tonight. And I loved hearing that from him, because he's our captain, right? He's the one who's got to be setting the tone. And the other part he said is, he goes, I'm a goalkeeper. I'm not with the main team for most of practice. Like, I'm doing goalkeeper specific drills. But, to hear him call that out and make the expectation clear, I think publicly, but not, explicitly saying any one person, I thought that was a very well made move from our captain that I was very excited to see. And I'm hoping that they're having a lot of intensity this week, and we're going to see the benefits of that on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I agree. I hope it's intense. I hope they get after it. I want to see our team come out with their hair on fire and ready to punch Kansas City in the mouth, metaphorically speaking. We don't need any red cards.
No red cards. Although, what are they going to do? Suspend us for the next week? I don't know if it carries over to next season or not. But like going down to 10 men is not conducive to winning. So no red cards.
And I'm excited to see how many City fans are in the stadium Sunday. I won't be able to make it.
Packed.
I've got a small child's birthday that day to deal with, so which would be fun in its own right. Although it doesn't mean the game won't still be on.
Yeah, we're watching it at our house too. I can't go either, but it will definitely be on. My daughter got a brand new sparkly purple soccer ball today, so our normal routine is to kick the ball back and forth while watching, which makes it very hard for me to focus on what is actually happening during the game. But I have a feeling that we will be doing that for 2 hours on Sunday night. So I asked you this about the Blues. I'm going to ask you it again about City. You're a coach. You head back into the locker room Sunday night after that game is over. What are you saying to the team?
I mean, the message has to be clear that one, hey, we as a team did not play our best game. Two, I think a little bit Cardinal needs to take a little responsibility to his team. Like, I didn't put you guys in the best position. I tried to change things up and it was not the right call. And then it's get ready, because this week's going to be all about bringing intensity, right? And then that's all it has to be. And that's it, right? This isn't the time to just berate you need them to buy in, but also understand that this is serious. We have to win this week.
Right.
So
I agree.
I had one question for you if you caught this in the game.
Okay, I'm listening.
There was the fourth goal, and I saw you made a comment about Leuven guarding Salloi.
Yeah.
Did you see the Stroud and Klaus interaction after that goal?
No, I did not. Do you know, is it on the replay? I'm going to watch
Klaus
it.
was furious with Stroud. Was yelling at him. Stroud put his head down, immediately walked up to half field. I don't know what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Klaus
I did
was
notice
just
that.
laying into him and just kept, I could, again, and it was obvious. So I just didn't know if you picked up on that. And it made me wonder if something happened that pulled somebody else away because they were trying to help cover, because Stroud either lost his footing, mismarked somebody. I'm not sure.
I'll have to rewatch the goal and see. I did notice that about Stroud. I didn't notice the part with Klaus, but I noticed Stroud, like, looking dejected, but I just kind of thought it was like, well, this fucking sucks, right?
No. Klaus was laying into him from the box. Like, Stroud was already at half field and Klaus was still like pointing and yelling.
Right. To be fair, when things are not going the way Klaus wants them to go, he does a lot of pointing and yelling.
I get that. But it was the combination of the two that, because there's a lot of like, and most people are like, yeah, whatever, Klaus, right?
Right.
But in this moment, it was very much like he was on to Stroud for something. And so I just didn't catch what it was because of where I was sitting, and I haven't, it's been a crazy, like you said, it's been a crazy week at work, and I haven't had a chance to go in and rewatch that, but I'm intrigued to know what actually led to that. And if any of my listeners know, please comment, tell me what I missed if you saw it.
Right. I wonder if Stroud was responsible for marking Polito, who got the header that fell to Salloi for the goal. I might be watching that as soon as we end this to try to see what happened. But yeah, it was cold. It was wet. It was miserable. If we had won, it would have been all of those things and awesome. But since we lost, it just sucked.
I'm still, and Lindsay and I talked about this on the drive home. I'm still excited. I'm still happy that I got to be there to support our team
for sure.
Our first ever playoff game.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, you could tell me beforehand, like, hey, you're going to lose 4-1 and it's going to like just be utterly demoralizing. Do you want to like sell your tickets to someone who doesn't know? And I'm still keeping my tickets, right? Like, there's no way I'm missing that. I'm still going. but yeah, and really, you know what? In a couple of years, when we talk about this game, like we're going to talk about like how miserable it was, and we're going to forget what the score ended up being, but we're going to talk about how great it was to be there. Like, because the chance didn't stop for, well, they did at like the 60th or 70th minute, but
Yeah,
the energy
the
stayed
stadium got a
high for
little
a long
quieter.
time.
Again, the moment that I felt life injected back into the stadium was when Celio came on and started making things happen.
Right, right. I
And it
agree.
just, he keeps doing that. And again, I'm still not even saying he needs to be your starter, right? That's not what I'm getting at.
You can sub him
Um,
earlier than the 80th minute,
but
though.
but when we need a spark and it's a either a tie game or we're losing, 60th minute, his ass needs to be coming off the bench.
Right, right. Well, and I think, and I get why coach likes to save like a sub in case someone gets hurt, right? Because like he'll normally do like two or three guys. Well, I guess it kind of changes, but he'll do like a sub at 60th. And then like normally by his second set of subs, he's done four of the five, right? But I still think you could do that four of the five. I think the last four should be on between the six, or the last two should be on between the 65th and 70th minute, most games. Like if you really want to impact the game.
If it's not just a defensive sub,
Right.
you need to be making those subs by the 75th minute at the very
Right.
latest.
At
Like
the very
you need to
latest.
have
Yeah.
them at the line by the 70th. So if you have to wait a few minutes for a stoppage, they're on the field by the 75th. Because
Right.
with extra time, typically in a game like that, you're going to get 20 minutes out of them at least.
Right. Right.
And I also love that I've slowly but surely, and I say I am, but it's Celio who's doing it because he's a
Mm.
beautiful, wonderful player, but converting you to a Celio lover yourself.
I like how you say that. Like I wasn't a fan of him. I just
You're not,
wasn't
you just,
fanboying like
let me
you were.
rephrase. You just didn't have the same kind of love that I do of him or
I
obsession, depending on how you
yeah.
word that.
I am still not obsessed with him. Now, that being said, if I was somewhere and I met him, I'd be like, holy fucking shit. Celio, what's up?
Yeah.
But like not like you whenever he's not around.
Yeah. Well, with that, this weekend's going to be a fun weekend. Again, we are recording our Cardinals roster predictions / argument debate this weekend, so that'll be fun. That'll be up beginning of next week, most likely. And then we've got the big game coming Sunday to see whether we can extend the season and bring it back home so you and I can go to another city game this year.
Right.
If you guys like our stuff, make sure you're following, subscribing, doing all the things. We do have swag now. So if you see us out and about, I actually try to keep a couple of these with me. Since I've gotten them, I've literally had a couple like on me at all times. So hit me up. We've got some fun koozies. They've got barcodes on the back so you can send our information to all your friends. And we've got some more swag things coming from our boy Jeff at STL BBK, who is making that stuff for us. Last but not least, Stan Kroenke, we fucking hate you. Good night, guys.